This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so as I conveyed through the message, okay, today we'll be discussing migration. Okay, not just today, even tomorrow we'll have some portion of the migration done. Okay, so when it comes to migration, there are different phases or different what do you call different migration process that are involved. Okay, when I say phases, okay, you can on a high level you can consider like before doing any migration, we need to discover what are the different workload or what are the different operating systems that we need to deal with, or what kind of applications we have got, and all those stuffs, right? So initially we need to understand the environment, we need to understand the landscape, IT landscape. Then we go and do an in-depth assessment, which operating systems are supported in the destination, and what kind of business requirements we have got. And we need to do a two different level of assessment. One, we call it as qualitative assessment. The qualitative assessment is more on the quality of delivery, like whether the users will be able to access the application with the same level of quality and delivery. And on the other side, we will do a quantitative analysis. When I say quantitative analysis, whether the current amount of CPU, memory, and the resource requirements can be met by the destination. So we'll do a kind of deep dive assessment. Then we go and do the actual migration, and post the migration we do have to do some kind of optimization by seeing the workload running in the cloud. We might have to downsize or right size, we might have to upgrade. So based on the um, report, or based on the analysis after migration to cloud, we have to do the optimization. Then we also have the secure and management. So this is the long run when we get into the stabilize phase. Okay, so there are different phases involved when it comes to migration. So we'll also discuss like what are the different tools that are available in the market for each of the phases, and what are the different migration process involved. Okay, so we call these as phases. And when you ask me like what are the different processes involved, or different migration process, we can just say migration preparation and business planning. So why we have a different names, or why we have too many different terminologies? So see, these are all generic terms that we can use for any migration or any different providers migration scenarios, whereas different vendors have their own processes and strategies. And when it comes to Microsoft, they have migration preparation and business planning as the first phase. So see, the business planning and migration preparation, see, it's not just about um, tools alone, right? We need, definitely we need to choose the right tools, that is important. And we need to have the right skilled people in place to do the migration. If you don't have the people with right skills on the migration workload, or the tool set, then migration is going to fail. And also we need to have the proper methodology put in place for completing the migration. And also we need to have proper process defined. So these four play a very important role when it comes to migration. Okay, so that's what we call it as preparation phase, or business planning, whether we have the right amount of budget, whether we have the right stakeholder approval, and all those things has to be validated. Then we go and do a portfolio discovery and planning. So these are all processes or migration related phases as per Microsoft. Okay, and we have migration and validation. Then we go and have this operate, optimize, okay, and secure the workload. Then we release it for the sign off, or the production activities. So we have different phases and different stuffs. Maybe this, there is some kind of design also we might have to do. Okay, I think we can just say design in between here somewhere, design phase, and then we go into migration and so on. So these are the terms that we generally see when we work with Microsoft as a vendor. Okay, but you can go with these generic terms for any provider, any company, wherever you work. So these phases can be dealt with. So when we talk about migration, people always think about server migration, right? They want to migrate a particular physical server to virtual machine, or virtual machine to a cloud server. Always people assume about the server migration. Yeah, server migration is one important essential part. We have different stuff there. We have to do a P2V, physical to virtual, or physical to directly cloud, or virtual to virtual, or virtual to cloud. So you can also have an image that can be converted to a cloud VM. When I say image, it can be in a VHD format, or it can be in a OVF format, or OVA format, or any different uh, file formats of the images. Okay, there are server migration, but that is not the only migration which you're talking about. We also have database migration, where we might be doing a same version to version homogeneous migration, or homogeneous or heterogeneous migration. And similarly, we have, when I say heterogeneous, we might be migrating from Postgres to Oracle, or Oracle to Postgres, or from MySQL to Microsoft SQL. So there might be homogeneous migration and heterogeneous migration. And we also generally do a app migration, application migration, which can be a web application or mobile application or whatever. And we also have a VDI migration, virtual desktop migration, that we might be involved. So here we are primarily going to discuss on server migration today, and tomorrow we might be seeing database migration and data migration. When we discussed about the storage related topics, we have seen most of the part, but then if you have some doubts, we can also see how to deal with the Azure copy, or the storage related migration tool sets. But this is more about copying the data, right? Migrating the data. So these are the 5 different workload category that we can say on a very high level. So we need to understand how we need to deal with all of these workload. When you have an on-premises data center, the data center might have servers, databases, application, virtual desktop workload. This is like optional, right? Some companies might use this virtual desktop kind of stuff, and some companies might not. And we might have some data workloads, which is nothing but your file server, or any data that is getting stored on your shared storages. So we need to migrate those workloads also, right? So we have different workloads to deal with. So when you talk about migration, we can, on a high level, we can just call these as migration workload. So we'll see a practical approach on how to do the end-to-end migration. Okay, it's going to be a practical session a little later today, but to start with, we will see like what are the different tool sets that are available, what are the different areas that we need to focus. So these are the 4 different areas which we need to primarily properly plan before the migration, or as part of the migration. So here, when we talk about tools, okay, without the right tools in place, definitely we are not going to succeed in the migration. Okay, we need to choose the right tools, technology, or we need to have a tool, maybe a kind of project management tool set, or an Excel spreadsheet which can do the governance. And we need to identify how we can do a project management or project governance. And also we need to involve the right identity provider and the right network security, all those things, right? So tools is not just for migration alone. We need to find out the tools for the program management, and also for network identity, security, all the surrounding aspects. Then comes the skill set. Okay, people with the right skills are needed. We need to have, see, when you talk about large providers like IBM or HP or other organization, they generally have a center of excellence team. So, or they call it as migration factory, or migration center of excellence, or they have cloud migration factory. They might have different names, but what they do actually, these teams are focused on migration. They will be helping out with migration from VMware to AWS, or VMware to Azure cloud, or on-premises physical server to Azure, or whatever, right? So they are specialized team who work on migration specifically. So most of the organization, they know that when cloud started blooming, or like cloud started having a lot of customers getting onboarded, they know that they need to have some specialization team which focuses on migration. So definitely many large providers like Wipro or HP or any big size companies, they have their own center of excellence team, which they call it as with different names. Okay, but at the end, they are migration center of excellence team. Even with TCS or any company you go, they will definitely have a separate migration team who does migration architect role or migration engineer role or different roles even within the migration center of excellence. So we need to have the right set of people lined up for the migration. Next comes the methodology. So we need to have the business processes properly built. When I talk about business processes, okay, we need to have a very strong business case created. Okay, so we cannot just like that go and say we can move this workload from this data center to Azure or AWS or whatever, right? We need to get the executive sponsorship approval, and then we need to have some funding to start the migration. Okay, we need to have all maybe like a lot of organizations will do a proof of concept or a kind of pilot they will do in order to showcase that these things will work out, and they need to have some kind of toolkit, like how to showcase the migration status, migration dashboard, or they might have some workload assessment and migration engine dashboard currently, like what, where we are, how many workloads we have migrated, what are the different workload types we have already dealt with. We need to showcase like what's happening, and we need to have a very proper toolkit that can highlight what is going on. And also sometimes some organization will ask for cost comparison or total cost of ownership that is involved in migration, as well as after migration what might be the actual cost of the each workload, so that they can make a right decision. Then also we need to have a proper tracking and optimization mechanism, not just during the migration, even after the migration. So we need to have all these proper methodology in place. See, even after having tools, people, methodology, if you are not following the right processes, for example the change management processes, or informing the stakeholders, or having the support team informed about the migration, having a proper rollback plan or proper backout plan, without all these things, definitely you are not going to succeed in migration. So we need to have all the processes put in place. When you talk about processes, you need to go and create a change request. You need to inform the stakeholder that we are going to migrate the development environment or a specific test environment first, and then we'll move on to migrate the production environment after a couple of weeks or something like that. And also whoever is supporting or the operations team, they also need to be informed that we are planning for some migration, and what are the different current issues that we have on these systems, whether if there is any current problem management ticket or any specific issues going on these systems. Because like there are chances that the migration team might get blamed while they complete the migration. They will say these issues were not there in the system, but these issues have started popping up after the migration or as part of the migration, and it will end up with ownership on the migration team. So we need to go and look at all the support tickets, the current pending tickets on that particular system, whether we should go and do that now, or we should whether fix that particular issue and then try to do the migration. So we need to do all these checks. Actually, we need to go and find out whether there is any problem tickets created or any other changes that has been planned at the same time. So in an organization there will be multiple different service line, right? Network, storage, and different teams will be doing different activities, and our activity should not overlap, or it should not have a conflict with other change request, or we need to have all those change management practice in place, and the change manager will actually take care of all these validation. So we need to inform them that we are going to do this, and then we need to get the downtime maintenance window. Okay, and we need to have a proper knowledge management practice. So what we are going to do, whether we have already done this migration in the test environment, development environment, and based on which the change management team will look at that and approve it. And as part of this, we also need to create a SOP, or we need to create lessons learned document, KB article. We need to identify what are the different risks involved and put them into the risk register, issue register. So we have a lot of things surrounding the migration. When you talk about migration, it's not just about migration, right? We need to have all these things put together, and sometimes you also have to provide justification on why we are planning to migrate. So all these things might already be available with us. We need to involve the migration architect to provide what are the potential benefit while we are migrating to the cloud. And if there are any ongoing gaps or issues, we need to fix that before we take the migration. So we need to have all these four corners properly aligned in order for a successful migration. Okay, it's not just about migration alone. So when you talk about migration, there are a lot of things that surrounds the migration. Okay, now coming to the migration adoption or the cloud adoption thing. So there are a lot of expert managed services provider. I'm not sure if you have seen any of that in the past. Okay, if you go to your Azure console, if you go and type migrate, okay, you will see this Azure migrate. Okay, and if you open this, if you go to your get started or explore here, so you can find out a lot of vendors who can help you with migration. Okay, if you go and look at specific managed services provider, MSP means managed services provider. So there are a lot of managed services provider. If you take India as an example, you will go and understand like who are all authorized, approved managed services provider who are in India to help with. You will see Wipro, DXC Technology, and a lot of big companies who are already Azure expert managed services provider. If you look at the list, you can see this, right? Wipro, HP, I mean, it's not HP, HPE it is, and DXC Technology, Prilio, Progressive, IBM, HCL. So these are all organization who already have a well established framework. They have already done a lot of transformation, modernization. They have a very good cloud adoption framework, and you can choose one of them and then start working with them in doing the actual migration. Okay, so this is how so Azure expert MSPs, okay, managed services provider or managed solution provider, migration solution provider, you can choose one of them, and then they can help you with their existing tool sets, processes, methodology, and then you can leverage it. If you are an organization who are not into IT, then you can go and talk to them, and then these specialized migration partners can help you with quick win of migrating. There are some fast track options also, but you don't have to really go into that. And if you want to have some specialization, when I say specialization, your organization might be slightly different from other organization. So for example, you might have to do a SAP migration, or you might have to do a what do you call mainframe migration. And if you want to have some specialized migration partners, you can also go and look at the list in the internet. Okay, so they are all specialized into a particular area. Okay, when I say particular area, as I told you, your organization might be interested in just doing a virtual desktop migration, or your organization might be interested in just doing a containerized migration. So we have expert managed services provider. So they are all having different skills. They can help you with DevOps, SysOps, a lot of different migration. But if you look at here, these are all the specialized partners. When I say specialized partners, if you want to do a application modernization, you can click and find the list here. If you want to migrate your SAP to Azure, you can go and find out who are the providers who are specialized in that. And if you want to look at analytics migration or virtual desktop migration, you can go and find out who are the Azure advanced qualified specialized partners who can deal with these things. See, if you're if you are an architect working for a non IT company, you are working for a particular manufacturing or banking and stuff, then you might not be directly aware who are all good in that particular area. So you can go and join hands with Kyndryl or Capgemini, Entity or Entity. I mean, yeah, so Entity Data, and you have many companies here, L&T, HCL. So these are all organizations who are specialized on migrating SAP workload to Microsoft Azure. Similarly, you can go and find out who has got a lot of experience on different industry vertical like education or financial, healthcare. So you can go and find out which organization has got specialization on migration of specific workload, and also expert migration partners who can help you with fast tracking that. So why we are going and choosing them? So they already have the tools, people, methodology, process already laid out. Only thing, they have to understand our own environment, and then they will help us quickly migrate our workload to Azure platform with less downtime or whatever. The most of the readiness checks, most of the dependency mapping validation, all these things they can quickly help us with doing in a very quick short time frame. Okay, so you can join hands with some of those expert partners, and we can deal that. So this is what we call it as strategy, how we are approaching the migration. Whether for example, that's the reason you might work with different vendors for different workloads, so people might be confused, right? So we might have some mainframe migration being done by Wipro, and then some SAP migration will be done by L&T. People will be confused why they are choosing different vendors for different things, because like they have some expert strategy on those workload migration. So if you are joining hands with that particular organization, the outcome is expected, and we know that they have already done that, and they have already have learned a lot of lessons. They have a lot of knowledge base, lot of documentations well defined, and they can help us with migrating those workload very quickly. Not just migration, even if you want to do a discovery, assessment, and modernization, they can help us do that, right? So strategical thing, and these are all mainly on the planning plan, and then we need to go with design, which is the ready phase, and we can go and adopt the new cloud, or like whatever Azure or AWS, we are going and adopting it, and then we will be managing it. So I think adoption can be kind of migration. And then we have this manage and govern phase. See, these are all different English words, but they're all saying the same thing. Okay, so we have different phases in migration is what I'm trying to cover here. So now when it comes to discovery, okay, so this is on a very high level. Okay, so on a very high level, if you ask me like what is the tool that I need to familiarize myself, then Microsoft provides you a tool called Azure Migrate, which is a kind of integrated service. When I say integrated service, it's not just about one tool. Okay, so for any kind of migration, it can be server migration or database migration or any kind of migration, you just have to log into this tool, and it is a single sign-on console, or it is a simplified one page or one place where you can go and do the migration, modernization, and optimization. Okay, so it's a simplified tool for migration, modernization, and optimization. It's not just about um, migration alone. Even you can do some pre migration steps also. Also provides pre-migration steps as well. What are the pre-migration steps? I'm talking about discovery, assessment, and all those things. And it also provides post-migration assessment or assistance also. Like what are the post-migration things? Optimization and right sizing, all those stuffs. Okay, so it can be your infrastructure, it can be your application or data or database or whatever, right? So it migrates everything. Okay, that whatever stuff that you have, and we can call this Azure Migrate. Okay, maybe let me use another sheet. So Azure Migrate. Okay, so Azure Migrate. So it's a one single unified platform. We can just call it as a unified migration platform for migration. Okay, unified migration tool for okay, so unified migration platform for all the different areas: migration, modernization, and optimization. And what we are trying to do here, we are migrating infrastructure, application, data, database, and all those stuffs. Okay, and now you might think like whether Azure Migrate is a single tool or something like that. No, it's not a single tool. It's a collection of integrated software vendor, or like there are many different ISV. Okay, what is ISV? Independent software vendors combined together. All the tool sets from different independent software vendor are combined together into an integrated service called Azure Migrate. So Azure Migrate is a integrated service. Okay, it's an integrated service combined of, or it's a combination of a lot of ISVs. What is ISVs? Independent software vendors. Tool sets are combined together into one tool called Azure Migrate. So different vendors have different offering. When you ask me like what are the different vendors we are talking about here, so you can think about PlateSpin, Movier, or there are many vendors. I'll provide you the complete list here. Okay, which tools are good for different areas. But then there is a range of tools that Azure Migrate provide. It's not just one tool. Okay, you can have different tools for different areas. So now, if you want to understand this Azure Migrate, you can think about this as a migration hub where you can just log in and complete end-to-end migration. Okay, we can call this as a migration hub, or you can call this as a integrated tool for doing end-to-end migration. So when you say end-to-end migration, okay, let me help you with some list here. And I'm not sure, have you heard about a tool called Movier, or Moveere? So this is a very famous tool that is used in the assessment phase of the project. Okay, there are other tools that are there where you can do a online discovery, or you can also go and do an offline discovery. So I can show you how to do those discovery and assessment. So you can go and do a okay, let me just delete this for now. We can talk about that later. So first thing, you need to do a discovery, right? When you say discover phase, okay, there are a lot of tools that are available. So most of the tools that I have experienced in maybe few years back, we used to use Microsoft assessment and planning toolkit. Okay, this is a very popular tool, but this tool is more inclined towards Microsoft products. If you have some .NET applications or Microsoft operating systems, Hyper-V environment, and all those things, then this particular Microsoft assessment and planning toolkit software can be a very good choice. But if you have a lot of diverse workload, you have some Solaris systems or IBM AIX, or some Unix, Linux, and Windows, and different workload, then this tool might not be a very helpful tool to do the end-to-end information gathering, dependency matrix analysis, or performance details. You cannot have end-to-end discovery done. If you want to gather some performance metrics from Linux, Unix, and other different operating system, or dependency mapping from different tool sets, then I would highly recommend going for Risk Companies Network Cloudscape tool. This is a very, very popular tool for doing a discovery. And if you ask me what are the other tools that are available, Science Logic's Cloud Mapper, and then we have Cloud Amice. Okay, we have got, Cloud Amice. We have got Atadata. Okay, I can keep listing many tools here. Okay, there are many tools that are available which does the discovery. Actually, what is discovery? So we go and gather the information, how many workload we need to migrate, what are the different OS flavors that are involved, Windows, Linux, and AIX, or whatever, right? So you need to find out what are the different OS involved, what are the different server hardwares that are involved, and then we need to find out what is the dependency between each system's dependency mapping. We need to identify how much data we need to migrate, how much capacity, how much performance currently it is consuming. So we need to do a lot of discovery. When you say discovery, it's not just about how many servers alone. You need to go and do a lot of qualitative discovery as well as quantitative discovery. Quantitative in terms of capacity that is being consumed in terms of storage, CPU, memory, the total resources consumption has to be discovered. So we have a lot of tools. Okay, if you have an existing VMware environment, then you have products like Turbonomics or vRealize suite of products which can help you to go and discover a lot of information. So when you talk about discovery, this is a very good tool. And when you want to do a planning or during the planning phase, you have a lot of tools that are available again. So as part of the planning or assessment tools, okay, let me try to give you some examples. Is my audio okay? And shall we continue to do the discussion just for because it is very silent?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, fine, fine. Okay, then good. Okay, so now we have a lot of partner tools that are available for assessment. Okay, so I think assessment is a very big area. Okay, I can just have a separate section for that. Okay, second phase is the assessment phase. What is the assessment phase? We are going to do two different levels of assessment: quantitative assessment and qualitative assessment. Quantity means numbers, how much servers, how many Linux, how many Windows, how much time we have got, and what are the where are the users, where they are accessing from, how much is the current consumption, what kind of data file formats we have got, how much capacity we have got, what are the different OS technologies, database technologies involved, what kind of current streaming tool set that we are using, what are the different web application technologies that are involved. So it involves understanding those areas. We need to go and identify what kind of uh, vendors or products are that we are currently using. So when you ask me like what are the popular tools that are there, so Azure Migrate itself is a assessment tool, but as I said, it's not a single tool, it's an integrated suite of tools. Okay, it has got a lot of different tools within that. And the very popular tool for server assessment, okay, so okay, let me just do this way. Tools for assessment. If you want to do server assessment, then you have tools like Cloud Amice. Okay, always prefer Azure Migrate. Okay, Azure Migrate itself can do it, but there might be some small limitations. So I'll explain about what kind of limitations I'm talking about, because when you always go for tools from Microsoft or some specific vendor like VMware or whatever, they will be able to do kind of assessment on their own proprietary environment or proprietary operating systems or tool sets or technology. But in a customer environment, you cannot expect that they will be having only Windows servers or only Linux systems and like that, right? They might have different diverse hardware, diverse operating system, database technologies, application development tool sets, platform, and so on, right? With different virtual desktop infrastructure and all those things. So now, okay, cloud, Azure Migrate, Cloud Amice, and then Device 42 is a very good tool. Okay, and I would all highly recommend, if you are a very senior person in your organization, if you are aspiring for an architect position or some senior position, migration architect or migration engineer, try to spend some time on this Device 42 webinar. Okay, this is a very popular tool that it is getting popular day by day. If you go to their events, they have a weekly event on Wednesday and Thursdays. Okay, they have a 1 hour free session. If you want to go through the YouTube Device 42 discovery and dependency videos, then yeah, it's also okay. So they have some virtual free events that happens every Wednesday and Thursday. So if you attend those, it is like 30 minutes to 45 minutes on Wednesday and Thursday. Sometimes they might stitch to 1 hour on Wednesday and Thursday if it is um, if there are good questions coming out of the audience. Okay, so you can attend those webinars. This is mainly on how to do a proper end-to-end discovery and assessment. Okay, Device 42 is a paid tool, but you can learn that particular processes that are involved in how to do the discovery and assessment. But here today's class and tomorrow's class is more into migration, but I just don't want to limit the topic only how to do migration of server from X location to a Y location. I am not interested just in that. I want to help you with understanding end-to-end flow of A to Z of migration. Okay, so here so Device 42 is again a very good popular tool for server assessment. Similarly, Quarantech is a very popular organization. They are a Microsoft authorized partner who does a very good assessment of your servers. Now your organization, your on-premises data center might not be just limited. Okay, so it is only 4 tools, right? So we can add more tools. Okay, Movier is there, Turbonomics is there, and we realize suite of products are there. You can also leverage any existing tool sets. Are it's not that you always have to go and purchase a new tool. If you already have something like we realize and Turbonomics and all those tools, you can definitely use those tools. But these are all very popular server assessment tool sets. So if you have an existing data center which needs to be migrated, or if you want to get out of the existing data center, then first thing is discovering an assessment. Okay, so these tools are very helpful in doing Windows, Linux, VMware, Hyper-V. So all those migration can be done. Okay, when I talk about server, it's not just about physical server alone. Okay, it can be your VM, or it can be your uh, physical servers, or it can be your VMware VMs, or Hyper-V VMs. Okay, it can be Windows or Linux, or different workloads also. Okay, it's not just limited to something specific. And when it comes to actual migration, okay, so when you come to actual migration, then you have the, okay, don't worry, okay, you already have a file name is that, okay, tools for migration. Okay, I'll
Uh,
also list down other tools also part of the assessment. No worries about that. I've just listed server for now. I'll also list down databases, web apps, virtual desktops, and other assessment tools that are there. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, Stan, I think we can use the same thing for migrating other cloud instances such as AWS to Azure also, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
that.
So, yeah, we will see the demo today. Okay, I'll show you how to do the live actual migration of AWS to Azure today. Okay, so we have a practical session today on how to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So okay. So you got confused here. Okay, I got it. Okay, so cloud virtual machines running on different providers stuff also. Yes, we can do it. Yes. Okay, I got you. Yeah. So now coming to the actual migration tool sets. Okay, the very popular tools on during the migration phase. I think many of you might have heard about it. This is like see, the tools are different. At the end, the processes, the procedure, the way that we do, it's almost the same. Okay, so you have Carbonite, a very popular vendor. Okay, always have Azure Migrate as the top option. And if Azure Migrate doesn't support specific workload, for example, for a specific reason, then you can choose different vendor. Okay, then you have Current Technology, and you have got Rackware, you have got River Meadow, you have got Zerto. So these are all tools, even Platespin and other tools are there. So these are very popular tool. If you want to migrate, what? Migrate physical virtual machines, Hyper-V VMs, and these are all the source, right? These are all the source. Okay, and what is the destination? Destination, we are trying to migrate it towards Azure VM, right? That is what the end achievement we are trying to do. Okay, so these are all some tool sets which are very popular for doing a workload migration from third-party cloud, or yeah, so other clouds, AWS, GCP. So since you have asked that question, okay, so if your organization is just doing AWS to Azure alone, okay, there are different options, okay, which can simplify the migration processes. Okay, let me just go and show you that. If you go to the marketplace here, if you just type AWS to Azure migration, there is a tool called Cloud TCT or something like that. Yeah, so Cloud TCT. Okay, Cloud TCT Oxygen. This is a marketplace offering tool which can help you with AWS to Azure migration. It's a very popular tool. It can quickly so, but again, not all the companies are migrating from one vendor to other vendor very easily, right? So there might be situations, but you have a very popular tool called Cloud Oxidity. Okay, let me just copy this. So if you're interested only in that, then you can use that tool. But again, since you have asked it, I'm just referring it. Okay, there are some specialized tool for specific cloud vendor to cloud vendor migration, like this one, the Cloudicity Oxygen tool, which is specialized in migrating the workloads from the AWS EC2 instances to Azure virtual machines. Okay, but then say I'm talking about all the different scenarios here, right? And when it comes to other assessment, so we talked about server. For example, some of you are coming from SQL and then NoSQL database experience also, right? And okay, I don't want to add a very big list here, but then the very top two or top three tools that are popular in SQL migrations are Unify Cloud. Okay, as usual, Azure Migrate has an inbuilt option which you can use. I'll show you the demo of how to do the database migration if possible today, or I'll show you tomorrow. Okay, Unify Cloud and then Cloud Pilot. These are all very popular tools that are used for as doing an assessment of your SQL databases. Okay, I think this list will go on and on. Okay, I'll try to limit it. Okay, then you have this web application. See, if you have a web application which is running on .NET or Python or different things, you have different tools for those also. Okay, PHP or whatever. So you can go and use Azure Migrate, or you can use some third-party web application assessment tools based on your source programming language. So source programming language, you know, right? You have plenty of programming languages. I don't want to limit with that, but the very popular tool is your Azure Migrate inbuilt web app assessment tool. Okay, there is a inbuilt tool within your Azure Migrate itself. Okay, and if you have a specialized workload that you want to migrate, like virtual desktops, or if you want to do a VDI migration from existing Citrix or some third-party VDI to Azure, then you have this Lakeside tool, okay, which is a very popular tool for doing an assessment of your existing virtual desktop infrastructure, the VDI infra, Lakeside Systrack. Okay, it's a very popular tool for that. And for data, you can do your own, right? You know how to go and identify what are the different file formats we have, how much capacity we have. There are a lot of tools like tree size report and all those things, which can give you a very good data discovery. Data is just about files and folders and all those things. I don't really want to invest on a specific tool to do that. But if in case your organization has got variety of data sets to deal with, then you can go and get some specialized tool on doing a data assessment. Okay, but for migration, you generally use Azure Data Box for data migration. Okay, so any questions so far? I heard a sound. Maybe I'll just give some breathing space for asking some questions. Okay, if not, let's continue. So far you are able to follow me, right?
Yes, Stan.
Okay, good. So now let's talk about the optimization and all those things. Now I think it is time to just get into the actual migration discussion. I'll talk about the assessment and sorry, the post migration optimization and all those things. And prior to that, see, if you are, I see a lot of senior people in this call here, right, who has got more than 10-15 years of experience. So for you guys, I think the information that I'm trying to share here or going to share for next few minutes will be useful. But for everyone, the actual migration demo that I'm going to share is going to be super helpful, right? So for some of you, these information might not be immediately useful based on your experience and the current role that you are playing, but these are all information that you need it in a long run in your organization or in your job role. Okay, now it's not very easy to convince a particular customer or a particular um, what do you call particular people to come out of their data center and come to cloud, right? So there needs to be some kind of pre-sales people or pre-sales architect who need to provide a very good justification to the customer to make them satisfy that why they should really come out of the on-premises to cloud. So if they want to migrate towards something, then we need to provide some justification. We need to tell them how we can bring magic to their organization, right? So how do we really think about those things? Okay, so when you go and approach a customer environment, see, if you already have an existing customer which you are supporting their data centers or on-premises environment, and right, if you are not doing the what do you call, if you are not providing the justification to migrate to cloud, someone else will come and provide that to the customer, and customer might involve the third party people to do the migration. And if you want to take the migration journey of the customer towards the cloud, then you need to go and tell them you have the advantage, right? You know what is the current data center, what is the current technology that they are using in terms of hardware, in terms of operating system and different areas. You know your customer environment very well. You know the customer current situation, what is their licensing strategy, what is their hardware renewal procedure, how much storage consumption they have. So if you're having a customer, then you need to give them what are the business drivers. At the end, the business leads or the business owners have to approve that they are okay to migrate towards cloud, right? And what are the possible areas which we really need to look at? The number one thing that we need to look at, the current data center lease stuff, or if the current data center is on lease, or if the current data center is expiring, or if the current data center has got a lot of cost and single point of failure. So if you are seeing data center is uh, having a lot of cost for the customer, then we can just tell them, so the availability is not that good, or their current data center is having a lot of legacy cooling infrastructure or power infrastructure or whatever. The technology is very old, and if the data center environment is very legacy, then you can tell them that moving to cloud will provide them a lot of advantages in terms of security, in terms of having high availability for their application and so on. And the next thing which we need to look at is their legacy hardware infrastructure. If they have a lot of hardware which is very old and which is expiring and which doesn't have proper vendor support and so on, so you can tell them like you have these many number of hardware which are already nearing end of support, or it's already out of support, and we might have to have a proper hardware for their business critical application. Similarly, if they are having a lot of legacy OS or legacy databases or softwares and so on, you can just have those lists and then tell them there is a lot of end of life hardware, end of life software, end of life OS, and all those things, right? So these are all some kind of information that you can provide them. And then if your hardware is running with unsupported firmware or whatever drivers and all those things. Similarly, if you have some unsupported OS by the vendor, okay, I'm talking about the OS provider, Microsoft and Red Hat and other companies, they might have their own support strategy, right? So they might end the support mainstream, and like extended support will get ended for every version now and then. So we need to look at which are the out of support operating systems, out of support hardware, firmware, and all those things, and we need to provide them. If we are running in this particular outdated list of systems, then there is a very high risk. Okay, and we should not always talk about completely exiting the data center. Some people will get scared if you do that. Okay, so what we need to tell them is we always should try and show them a hybrid strategy to start with. Okay, so when I say hybrid strategy, some kind of business critical workload can continue to run on the on premises, and some can move to the cloud. And see, definitely there will be a challenging questions coming out of the customer. Some customers will say like they have invested a lot of money very recently in the hardware or in the data center, and they were doing some lot of investment there, and they don't want to move the systems from there to cloud and end up um, leaking a lot of revenue, or wasting a lot of investment. So if they are talking about that way, okay, then you also should have some approach towards the hybrid strategy model also, how we can have a balanced cost, and what is the current cost that we are spending, and what are the maintenance cost involved, the people cost, and all those things, right? We should have some evidence or data that can help them with understanding how we are going to help them with hybrid strategy. What kind of workload can quickly migrate to cloud, and how we can improve the availability, and whatever we discussed on the very first day class, right? The availability, elasticity, the storage tiering option. Because in on-premises, if you think about the data, every data will be put into the same storage. Okay, they will be the data might not be used at all, and you might not have a proper archiving strategy or hard cool and all those kind of transitioning might not happen in the legacy on-premises storage. But when it comes to cloud, you can save a lot of cost by moving the unwanted data, archive the data, delete the data in a proper lifecycle management. So now some customers will already be interested in doing a change in vendor or change in support vendor, and you can highlight them that you get a lot of support from single vendor like Microsoft or Amazon, or these vendors can provide you end-to-end standardized architecture with complete support. When I say complete support, when it comes to public cloud, the infrastructure is completely managed by whom? Microsoft, Amazon, Google. They manage the complete physical data centers infrastructure, and also in certain areas like the complete hypervisor management is also done by them. So you get a complete standardized architecture, and you have to have one single vendor who can support end-to-end technology. But if you are thinking about your own existing data center, you might have to deal with HP, IBM, different storage vendor, different network vendor. All these complex customer handling or vendor handling is out of the equation. Okay, you need to tell them currently you are paying this much amount for these many different hardware vendors for extension of support, and so that is where as a pre-sales architect or as a solutions architect, you need to tell them that there is a lot of revenue, because people always just think on the technology alone, but it's not just about technology, right? There is a lot of maintenance cost, there is a lot of vendor support cost, there is a lot of OS licensing cost. All these things will come as a bundle for you in the cloud. Okay, so as a stakeholder, they will be looking for a lot of information. What is the greatest value that they are going to get, or what is the specific business outcome that they are going to get when they are doing the transformation or when they are doing the migration towards cloud? And they will definitely need to understand the business driver or the business outcome, what exactly they are going to get as a result after migrating to the cloud. So you need to tell them that whatever we have learned so far, right? In terms of high availability, and then auto scaling, elasticity, the different right sizing that we can do, and we can spin up and spin down, or you can reduce the systems when you don't need that. And you need to highlight those key performance indicator after you are migrating their existing workload to the cloud. And also you can show them the different capabilities that different cloud provider has got. So that's the reason we are learning all these different options that the public cloud vendors have got, right? So definitely you will have to go through this phase, but sometimes some of you might not get opportunities, because mostly these are all things that are dealt by the pre-sales architects and the solution architect. But I just want to tell you, okay, so migration will not happen automatically. There should be some innovation, that there should be some kind of stakeholder discussion that has to happen, and you need to go and motivate the customer in order for them to do the cloud transformation or cloud migration journey. Okay, it will not automatically come, and if you are delaying that, some other vendor will come in and start doing it. So if you are working for a specific company or non-IT company, then as a person you need to go and explain what is the benefit that we are going to get. We are just trying to justify the migration towards the cloud or journey towards the cloud. Yeah. So then if you are still discussing with the provider or the vendor, they will ask for a lot of other question. Okay, how long? So they will be convinced. Okay, so they will be okay, so we are seeing a lot of good potential benefit in terms of availability, scalability, and one single vendor support, and we are saving a lot of cost in terms of maintenance management. So the customer will say, okay, we are good with that. Now they will ask the next question: what are the timelines we are talking about? How do we understand the timelines? Okay, so people get confused when they ask about timelines. They will only say about migration of the servers. That is not the only thing, right? So you might have diversity of asset. Okay, we need to understand what are the different assets we are talking about, because you might have different diversity, you might have different environment, you might have production, you might have development, you might have staging environment. So you cannot just go and directly migrate the production starting, right? So you have to do it in phases. First you need to go and touch the testing environment, then the development, then the non-production, then we go for the production environment. It has to happen stage by stage. So you cannot just go and do everything at a single stage. And we also need to understand the readiness of the staff. Okay, when I say readiness of the staff, we need to understand whether the support team is readily available, how much they can handle, or how much budget we have for people to get onboarded. We cannot do 100 server migration using 2 resources. So we need to find out how many resources we have got, how much funding we have got. With the funding, how many servers or how many applications we can migrate, whether we have got the right approvals in place, okay, to in order for the migration to happen, whether we are following all the change management practice. So the reason I'm adding change management separately, as a person with IT experience, you know the complexity, right? So in change management, they have a different change freeze calendar. See, if you go and ask uh, any activities to happen now, you know, right, it is a freeze period in many of the organizations. They will never allow to do something in the last 2 weeks and the first week of the January timeframe, because many of the people will be taking vacation, and a lot of people in the Europe and US will have their time off, and definitely they will not be available to support you. So many organizations will have their own change freeze calendar. And if you say 3 months, if you are talking about 3 months starting November, then you should completely wipe out the December month, or 3 weeks of the December, or including the first Jan week. So you need to have the right timelines defined. So that is where you need to understand what is the specific change implementation procedures we have, processes we have, change approval process we have, and all those things. So based on that, the timelines will differ. And we need to understand the segment regulation. Different application might have different complexity involved, or different certification involved. There might be some auditing that is needed. There might be some kind of PCI DSS standard that we need to follow. So different workloads, we cannot just like that migrate. Some application, it always has to get migrated over the VPN. You cannot migrate it over the internet. So different application will have different industry compliance requirement within the single company itself. Okay, some application might be PCI compliant, some application need not be PCI compliant. We need to distinguish those segment regulation application into separate migration waves. Okay, so that we don't end up migrating business critical data over the public internet, and we might have to pay a lot of penalty. We need to understand their criticality, and then how we need to deal with those data. We need to talk to their business owner, and then we need to understand if they have got some security regulations or security requirements for dealing with the migration. So if you understand these areas, only then you will be able to put together a proper timeline for your migration. So without that, okay, you cannot do anything. Okay, so you need to find out the funding, staff readiness, change management process, approval process, any specific security compliance requirement, okay, and all those stuffs. And then you can give them some level of, what do you call, some rough estimate. Okay, you cannot give them the exact timelines. Okay, you can just give them some rough order of magnitude timelines. When you understand these areas: workload, diversity, staff readiness, funding, change management, segment regulations, and all those things. Now, okay, so I think we are almost covered up with different areas that we generally deal with migration. Now we'll talk about the strategy in migration. When you say strategy in migration, now we have decided that we are going to migrate the workload towards the Azure cloud. Okay, so we have got the approval, we have got the planning, we have got the discovery and the assessment done. Once after the discovery and assessment is done, we take the migration strategy. What are the different migration strategy that are available? So if you ask me like what are the different migration strategy options that are available, you have Gartner's 6R strategy. Okay, that is the strategy that 95% of the organization will follow. So earlier it used to be a 5R, and then it changed, and now we have 6Rs. Okay, when I say 6Rs, the R here is nothing but there are different strategy. Okay, rehosting strategy. You might hear these terms when you're talking to a migration team. They will say like we are doing a platforming, we are doing a rehosting, we are doing a refactoring and retaining. Okay, so retain and then retire. Okay, so you have these 6 different R. Okay, that's where it is called as 6 R's. Okay, we have 6R strategy. So we'll understand what are these 6R strategy which all the service provider organization practice or follow. The very first thing is rehosting strategy. Rehosting means the name itself, it is straightforward, right? We are changing the physical host here. Instead of having the application running on your own data center hardware or host, we are migrating into a different Azure host or a AWS host, or we are changing the host here. We are changing the hosting platform. The server hardware platform is getting changed here. So we are doing a lift and shift migration. So we are moving the application or the workload from one hardware to another hardware, rehosting. There is no change in application level. It is just a server level migration. Okay, only the host is getting changed. Only the host. What is host? Host is the server. Only the host is getting changed. No changes in terms of operating system, no changes in terms of application, nothing is getting changed. Okay, only server is getting changed. That is what we call it as lift and shift. Lift and shift is the very easier one. When I say very easier one, there are challenges. You need to choose the right tools and stuff, but here it's very less risk involved, because we are just moving it. It is easy, it is quick, and we just need to do the migration. It's like very straightforward lift and shift. Rehosting means it's a very less effort to move the current state to a new state of system in the cloud provider environment with minimal change to the overall architecture. There is very less changes here. Okay, now talking about the re-platform, we are doing the lift. We are doing some kind of tinkering here. Okay, this is like a colloquial simple term for you to understand. Okay, I'm just making some simple terms here for you to understand the concept. Okay, so but the actual terms that we need to use is these are the standard terms. Okay, but whatever the simple terms or colloquial language terms that I'm referring, it's for your understanding only. Okay, lift, tinker, and shift. We are doing some kind of tinkering. At what level? At the application level. Okay, we are doing some kind of repackaging. So when I say repackaging, current application might be running on a particular platform version, maybe .NET X 3.x or 4.x or whatever, and then we need to do some kind of code changes, or we need to do some kind of small changes. Okay, it's not a major revamping. We are not completely changing the application. Okay, you have to be very clear. There is no major application overhaul. When I say application overhaul, we are not completely changing the application architecture or application um, architecture. Okay, we are just changing only the platform here. Only the platform is getting changed. Instead of a current platform version, we are changing it to a new platform version. So here, maybe sometimes you might move to Azure Elastic, no, not, not Azure Elastic Beanstalk, Azure App Services, or some kind of PaaS offering here. Okay, so with re-platforming, we might currently use the physical hardware and then the operating system, and we will be managing the end-to-end here. When it comes to cloud, so only the platform and the application we will support if you are moving it to PaaS model. Even if you are moving it to Azure Virtual Machine also, then we are not changing a lot of stuff, but still the application version, the OS version, we might change it in order for the cloud provider to support it, because you cannot just like that migrate Windows 2003 or Windows 2008 workload to cloud and ask cloud provider to provide support. They will not allow you. Okay, so you need to make some small tinkering, small changes in order for the platform to accept your workload. So here for lift and shift, there is no developer involved. Okay, here the operations team or the administrator team or migration administrator is enough for migration. But again, testing has to be done by everyone, okay, including the development team or whatever. But the administrator, when I say administrator, I'm talking about the server administrator, storage administrator, or whatever administration team, operations team is enough for this migration, for the rehosting. But here we need developer for us to support the development team is needed. Why? We need to do the repackaging, or we need to do some minor changes, and in order for that to happen, development team has to get involved. Then repurchases, drop whatever we have and then go and shop something on the cloud. You might go and drop something like Microsoft Exchange and then go and use what? You can go and use Office 365 Exchange Online or whatever, something like that. So similarly, you can drop the existing file server and then go and start using Office 365 SharePoint or something like that. So you are dropping whatever we have got and then you are going and starting using something new on the cloud platform. In some scenarios, there might be some what do you call some, just a second, yeah, some justifications, or we need to have some interesting area to be discussed and deal with that. So dropping and shopping is we are closing whatever we have in the on-premises and we are using a new technology and new licensing model, or new way of hosting our services. Okay, that is what drop and shop is all about. And just a second. Okay, so next one is the refactoring. Refactoring is nothing but re-architecting. Okay, this is the most complex most complex one, and the most, just a second, I'll take some water here. Okay, so this is the most complex one, and this is the most cost involved one, because we are doing a re-architecture. We are doing the we are taking a very high risk here. Okay, the risk is very less on rehosting, the risk is medium on replatforming, and the risk of migration, I mean the downtime, the service disruption, and all those things, right? It is going to be very heavy because we are completely changing or refactoring or re-architecting the existing application. And also there is a lot of time involved because we need to explore the full functionality of the existing environment, and we need to understand the full functionality of the cloud provider environment, and then we need to map everything, and then this takes a lot of time. There is a lot of refactoring that is happening, and this is the most complex one. Okay, so the next one is the retain one. Retain one is nothing but revisiting it later. So retain means you're not going to retain it for lifetime. There will be some maybe some reasons. For example, you might have bought a new license for an application or for software or for OS, or you might have purchased a new hardware recently for that application, and you don't want to migrate it now because you have done some recent investment, and after 2 years or after 5 years you want to do that. So that is the reason we say it is revisit later. It's not just you are going to have the application running in the on-premises data center for lifetime. So instead of doing the migration now, we can think about migrating that workload after 1 year or 2 year or 3 year or whatever, based on the current investment. And once you got all the revenue back on your investment, you can go and migrate it to the cloud later. What is retiring? Retiring means if you do the discovery and assessment, you might be surprised with a lot of systems that are running for no use or no purpose. There will be many servers which might have got created for some reason, for some POCs or testing or for some reason, and then it might have left running for ages. No one will know what that system is used for, and then if you go and talk to different business owner, no one will understand what system you are talking about, and then the business will take a leadership ownership, and then they will take a decision to power off the server for 2 weeks and then decommission it. You will find out at least 5 to 10% of such cases in big organization. In every organization, we will have some unwanted workloads and data that are there accumulating your compute, storage, and other processes. Okay, so these are the 6 different strategies that we will do for each of our workload. How do we deal that? See, if you have and migration planning, so you will have all the servers listed like this. Okay, server, and then application, and then you will have the environment, and you'll have a complete tracker for everything, and then here you will have the strategy. Okay, for server 1, the strategy is to rehost, and for application 3, the strategy is to refactor. So you will have to go and do that mapping, and for server 5, the strategy is to go and do the replatforming. So the migration assessment, discovery and assessment will provide you the details on what we need to do, or what is the strategy for each of the server, each of the application. We will have a mapping created in an Excel format or in a tool format, where we can go and understand what are the different strategy we need to deal with that. So so I mean, if there might be, I mean, I'll take few more minutes to explain what we generally do or how do we derive this. Okay, and then we can move on to the other areas. Okay, 650. Okay, so see, when I talk about rehosting, so as a migration architect or as a solution architect, there are a lot of drivers, right? If you want to do a rehosting, so why we are doing a rehosting, why we are moving from on-prem to cloud, we want to have some reduced capital expense, we need to free up some data center space, or there are a lot of drivers, right? So rehosting, business will approve rehosting based on these areas, right? They want to reduce the capital investment on those servers. They don't want to renew the existing licenses for the hardware, software, OS, and all those things. We need to free up the DC space, data center space. Okay, achieving some rapid return on investment. So these are all some basic parameters. And if you want to do the rehosting, what level of discovery and assessment we need to do? So for rehosting, we just need to understand few areas. We need to do a quantitative assessment or quantitative analysis, definitely quantitative, and also qualitative assessment. So analysis or assessment or whatever name you want to call it, it's the same. Okay, when I say quantitative analysis, we need to go and understand how much is the VM size, how much is the, how much memory it is consuming, how much CPU it is consuming, how much storage, what are the different systems that are talking in the network, which system is talking to which system, and we need to find out the network traffic between the system. We need to find out the dependency mapping, because if you are not understanding this, see, if you are migrating one app server, and then if this app server is talking to some DB server in the on-premises, if you are migrating this app server one weekend to cloud, and then you still have the database in your on-premises, then these two systems talking to each other will start having a very high latency, and there will be a lot of performance issue. So if you are not finding out the dependency mapping, if you're not understanding the network traffic between the systems, then your migration is going to definitely have a very big impact. So you need to identify the network traffic, dependency mapping, and the asset compatibility, whether this application is supported on the cloud or whether this OS flavor is supported on the public cloud platform. We need to understand the compatibility of your existing thing. And next is your qualitative assessment. Okay, and I think the qualitative assessment, it's a interesting thing that I mean, a lot of areas we might not get the actual information which you are trying to get, but either ways we need to do it. Okay, what kind of information we need to get? We need to get what is the tolerance for change, whether the business owners will give you approval, whether the application owners are ready to undergo the migration. And so they will, I mean, a lot of companies, like if they are running that application in a particular hardware and operating system for 10 years, they will not allow you. Okay, so they will say, okay, no, we have the system stable for last 10 years and we don't want to change anything. So even the higher leadership might have given you approval to do the migration, but then the actual business owners will have a lot of tolerance for change. So we need to understand whether why they need to have it in the on-premises, what kind of reasons they are providing. We need to understand those challenges also. Okay, so they might have some business priorities, they might have some new feature coming up in the next few weeks, and they don't want to make any changes now, and they have a major event scheduled with that application in next few weeks. So we need to understand those business priorities also. So you cannot just go and plan for migration without understanding the change tolerance, business priorities, and what kind of critical events that are lined up for that application. A lot of application might have a lot of new features going to the customer. See, I'm talking about, for example, Amazon is giving you a lot of new sales, new events. Similarly, Flipkart application are coming with different things. Different companies will have different things. If you talk about Samsung or Sony or whatever, they have a lot of events happening around the year. Okay, they are coming up with a lot of sales, engagement, new versions, new products, new things, all those things, right? So we need to tie up your understanding to the business or to the process that are involved. Okay, so if you have just the quantitative information, it doesn't mean you can go and do the migration. You need to definitely understand the qualitative information of the application. Only then you will be successful with just rehosting alone. Okay, even just for rehosting alone, you need this much amount of data. But think about replatforming. We are completely doing a what we are just trying to do. Let me think. Yeah, refactor is re-architecting, right? So let's discuss about the complex one. We talked about the very small one, and now I'm talking about the most complex one, the re-architecting thing, right? So if you want to understand the re-architecting thing, so why we are doing refactoring? You want to completely fasten the application development lifecycle or code portability, or if you want to understand, you want to get the complete cloud efficiency in terms of cost, speed, and all those things. You are completely refactoring your application towards the cloud native hosting model to get the maximum benefits out of it. And what you need to understand here, you need to go and get the complete all these things are needed, but on top of that, you also need to understand the user level traffic, how much the user level traffic is happening, what are the page views, how many pages are being accessed, how much time the user stays on that particular page. We need to understand the loading time of that particular application pages. So you need to get little more quantitative information, because we are completely re-architecting the application. We are just not just lifting and shifting here, just like your on-premise, I mean, this option. So here it is very straightforward. We are just doing a rehosting, but still we need to get all these data, because you need to understand whether the business is ready for that migration in terms of their current critical events that are lined up or whatever activities that are lined up. But if you are doing a refactoring, then you need to get all these data. You need to understand what kind of development platform currently the system is running on, what kind of programming language it was developed, okay, and what kind of data platform is there on the back end, okay, what kind of middleware systems that you are using, okay, what kind of EMQ or databases, or all these things has to be properly understood. Okay, and also we need to understand the consumption of all these things, the database consumption in terms of CPU, memory, disk, network, IO, all those things, right? So you need to get all the details for all the systems, not just like the rehosting. So you need to go and completely get the user traffic view, or the end user view of the quantitative information. And then when it comes to qualitative, again, we need to identify the same exact thing. On top of that, we need to understand what is the maximum peak workload that this application will touch. Okay, we need to understand the peak area, or the bursting level, how much it might experience, or what is the maximum traffic that it might hit. And then we need to understand the business processes, and then all those different stuffs that are involved in that particular application. So when you're doing a refactoring, you need to get more data, okay, a lot of data. And here with hosting, the migration is simple, but then if you have these information, well and good, but your migration cannot proceed without the business process or business owner or business application owner approving the migration, right? So I mean, I can just talk about all the other areas for hours now, but then I don't want to get into everything. But here, what I'm trying to convey is, if you are doing a rehosting, even it's not just about quantitative analysis. There is a lot of qualitative analysis or assessment that you need to do. But if you're going for the most complex refactoring, there are a lot of time that you have to spend on discovery and assessment. So your discovery and assessment depends on how you are planning to migrate that workload, whether you want to completely re-architect it or just doing a lift and shift. So different level of migration strategies will involve different timelines and duration. Okay, so think I think I have covered most of the areas here. Okay, let's go into the practical mode now. Okay, we are already 7. Okay, we'll see how to do the step-by-step migration of AWS to Azure now first. And I'll also talk about what are the different migration best practices, what are the different issues that we generally come across when you do the migration and all those stuffs. So let's see. Any questions so far? I know it's some of you might be experiencing or like have not got exposed to these things in the past, but these are all very, very important thing that is going to help you when you are getting involved in any migration team or migration squad. Okay, let's go and create a VM on AWS. Okay, so we need to have 2 different VM. I've just spinned up a new VM just before the session. It's a brand new VM. Okay, I just launched it, and I don't want to launch the other VM because it might end up a big cost for me. Okay, just a second. See, I just launched it at 5:29, just before 20 minutes before the session. No, just 1 minute before the session. We started our session at 5:30, so I just spinned up this VM at 5:29. Okay, I'll create one more session, one more VM for migration purpose. So I'll just call this as configuration management server, which will be used for doing the actual migration process. Okay, I'm going to migrate one server and I'm going to involve one more server to do the information gathering or collection of information about that particular system. And then I'm going to use one intermediate server to do all the workload migration. Okay, so I'm just creating 2 servers, one for the actual migration and one to do the intermediate thing. Okay, here, so for you to understand the overall procedure, okay, so you need not have a AWS or you need not have any other VMware or other provider VM. You can understand the end-to-end migration by just using Azure alone. How do we do that? So if you want to migrate a VM from one region to another region or one location to another location, you can try it within Azure itself. See, for example, let's do that first. Okay, and meanwhile, I'll create this VM on the back end. But again, creating VM, it's going to take only 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so let me go and select this. Let me go and use the existing security group. I don't want to create too many. Let me launch this VM. Okay, I'm going to create 2 VMs. I've created 2 systems here on my AWS platform. And meanwhile, I'll also show you how to completely understand or do the practical migration from one location to another location, one region to another region within Azure itself. Okay, so if I go to my Azure, I have empty here. Okay, nothing is there. I'll go and create a new Azure VM. Okay, I'll create it in a location. Maybe let's create it in East US, or else let's do one thing. I'll go and create it in some other locations which we are not using regularly. Okay, let me create a systems in Canada. Okay, so I'll just call this as Canada VM01. Okay, maybe I can just call it as Canada Web Server VM01. Okay, so this location is all fine. So I'll select some whatever server you want to. Okay, 2019 is fine. So I'll go with some small capacity. 2.8 is fine. Okay, I'll show you how to deal with the entire migration flow, and then I'll show you the practical of how to migrate it from AWS to Azure. Okay, so this is fine. So let me create it. So I have a virtual machine that needs to be migrated. So if you don't have any other cloud provider like DigitalOcean or Google Cloud or AWS or whatever, you can try to do it like this here. Okay, within your Azure subscription alone, you can practice the end-to-end process flow. But from my side, I'll show you the different scenarios, including AWS, and I'll also show you the database migration also end to end. Was it too much of information, or you guys were able to follow what I was talking about here? Silence means you might be completely blindfolded, or maybe like you have not understood anything, or maybe it is a lot of
No, no.
information. Okay.
Uh, Stan, I think we can go for one thing. So, like one VM migration that
Mm.
we are currently performing. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, once you see some practical, and I think you will be able to relate it.
Yes.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So,
that's correct.
okay. Always people expect some visual learning also, like seeing some practical and stuff. Yeah, good. Good. Okay, now we have got a VM in Canada Central. Okay, and now I'm going to use the Azure Migrate to migrate that VM from Canada Central to maybe US to Canada to US, or Canada to UK, or whatever. You can do it. Okay. So now I'll go to the Azure Migrate. So here is where you have the different migration goals, whether we are going to migrate the server or database, or database only, or virtual desktop or web app or database. But I'm going to do the server migration now, and for which I'm going to create a new project. So for this project, I'll just call this as Canada to US project 1. Okay, and the geography that I'm going to deal with is Americas. Okay, you can select where you are going to do the migration, whether in United States, or where exactly you are going to do. Okay, Canada is also there. Okay, interesting. Okay, that's fine. Okay, you can create it in any location. So that's the geography. Okay, now here is where you need to understand whether you want to do the actual migration using the public endpoint, or you want to do it in the Microsoft backend thing. So if you're doing Microsoft backend, you can go with the private endpoint. Okay. So if you want to disable the complete public for some specific security requirements, you can also disable that. So now I'm going to select the specific network. Okay, click on create. But if you want to do it on the public internet also, that is fine. Okay, you'll be able to do that. Okay, I'll show you because from AWS to Azure, you cannot do it private because it has to traverse through the public internet unless you have a site-to-site VPN, or something created between the two providers. We saw the lab for site-to-site VPN between AWS and Azure, right? If you have that setup available, you can do it in a kind of VPN, virtual private network. But again, it is not real private backbone. It definitely goes through the internet, but in a secure channel. Okay, so here I've just created a new project, okay, and using which I'm going to show you how to migrate the workload. So now, if you remember, we were seeing the recovery services vault last week or last week, right? Where we saw two options: site recovery and backup. So using site recovery, you can also do some replication from one location to another location. So okay, I'll come to that part. Let the project get created. Okay, it's taking some time. Okay, meanwhile, okay, let me duplicate the screen. Meanwhile, I can just go and do something on that VM in order for that to validate. So we can enable some roles, or any specific features on this VM. Currently, it is in Canada Central Zone 1. So let me go and do some changes here. I'll add some role. Okay, meanwhile, I can also disable firewall and other unwanted things here. Oh, sorry, I should have not closed that. So add roles and features. We'll go with the basic one, web server. If you want to add additional roles like file server or fax server, whatever, you can just do that. Okay, it's not an issue. Yeah, I think this is fine for now. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think this is okay. Install. Okay, I want to show you how whether the application is working after the migration. Okay, we need to have some kind of data or some kind of um, services, right, to validate before and after migration. So here I'm just going to create some data here. Okay, I'll just create something like scale up and new file or folder, whatever. Okay, it is pretty slow because I mean I gave 2 CPU and 8 GB of RAM. Okay, that's fine. It's working anyways. So let me go and modify this one. Go to your inet pub. Still installing. Oh, it has come just now. www root. This is the default homepage, right? Let me go and edit it. Okay, I just want to identify that this is our server. Okay, that's the reason I'm just giving something. Okay, done. Close it. Save. Okay, done. Close. We are all set for migrating this. So the procedure that we need to follow, you have to create a project. Now, yeah, we need to definitely do the discovery and all those assessment. I'll show you how to do the discovery and assessment. There are two methods that we can do. We can do agent based and agentless. Okay, I'll explain that in details. Okay, how to do the discovery. You can do it offline because some customer environment, they will not allow you to go and do the discovery by having access to their environment. Instead, if you ask them to provide some information on a CSV format or performance data or whatever, you can use that discovery information and then you can do the assessment offline. But in some environment, you will get access to their environment as a read-only access or some level of access. You can go and do it agent and agentless both. Okay, I'll show you what are the options involved there. But now in this project, I'm just going to do the migration here. I'll show you the discovery and migration later. I mean, discovery and assessment later. But now I'm just going to do the actual migration. So in order for the actual migration to happen, okay, let me okay, it is for on-premises. Okay, now if you go one step back, if I go to my recovery services vault, here, this is the tool that will help you to do the actual replication, online replication and migration. Okay, so here I'll just call this as Canada to US migration vault. Okay, so you can create it in whatever region you want to do that. So for example, if I want to migrate it to West US or something like that, I can just give that. Okay, this is fine. Review and create it. So for discovery and assessment, we have no option. We have to definitely use the Azure Migrate. But for replication and migration, you can use the recovery services vault directly. Okay, as the first step. But I'll explain the discovery and assessment sample. I'll show you how to do that in practical. Okay, but meanwhile we can just trigger this replication. It will take a lot of time. It will take 30 minutes to 1 hour for replicating and having the server in the destination. So while that is happening on the back end, I'll explain those theory part. Oh, I know, like, we are continuously sitting here, but yeah, I'll start the replication now. We'll also have some quick break while the replication has got triggered. I think AWS to Azure migration, we might be able to start only tomorrow, because like we have got very less time. It will take at least 1.5 hours for end-to-end migration. Okay, so let me go to the recovery services vault. Okay, it's getting created. Okay, done. Go to the resource. Now see, this is the tool that we use for replication or migration. Okay, so if you're doing continuous replication and cutting out over on a weekend, then that is called online or like less downtime migration. If you want to do it only once, you can also use the same tool. Okay, so this tool, replication tool, can be used for either migrating your Azure virtual machines from one region to another region, or if you want to protect from VMware to Azure or Hyper-V to Azure. All these scenarios are supported. But I'll show you how to do the replication between Azure now, and I'll show you the replication between AWS and Azure later. Yeah, so now if I want to enable the replication, it is asking which region you want to do it. I'll just say West US for now. Okay, oh, this is the source. Source is Canada, actually, sorry. Canada Central is the source. Okay, and now it is asking which resource group. Okay, resource manager. Oh, we did not have any resource group there as what. Okay, so disaster recovery between availability zone, no. Virtual machine deployment model, resource manager. Okay, let me check. Maybe possibly the resource group is in East US. Okay, that's the reason we need to be very careful. We need to create a separate resource the same as the source region. Okay, so this is where it becomes interesting. Okay, so here, okay, if you are protecting machines across zones, you may need to continue. You may continue for cross-regional DR. Please select a vault with its resource group. Okay, so this is where we need to be careful. We need to create the vault in the same region. Okay, now, okay, let's see. Okay, it doesn't allow us. Okay, we can create a separate resource group. That should be okay. But by mistake, we have created it in the wrong region. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's see. So here we have created in central, but then the resource group we have created in this one. So let us do one thing. Let us try one thing. We will try, and I don't think it will allow us to move. The option is disabled because of there are some resources from global regions. There are some resources in West US also. Okay, let's try this. Let's create one more replication, one more thing. Okay, let's go and create. I don't think. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's create a recovery services vault in a different region. Okay, just a second. Is it possible to move this? No, right? Okay, let's try that resource mover option. Sometimes it might help us. So I'm going to move the resource from one resource group to another resource group. Let's try this. Okay, from Stan to, let me create something new. Stan Canada resource group 01. Okay, click next. Add the resources for movement. So which one I need to move? I need to move this web server. Yeah, just a second. Before that, we'll try and execute this properly. Let's go and create a resource group first. Create a resource group. Okay, let me create it in Canada Central. Again, don't want to make the same mistake. Canada Central resource groups 01. Review and create. Create. Now let's move the resources. Resource mover. Move the resources from to another resource group, from Stan to Stan Canada Central. Click next. Add resources. I'll select the CN web server. Okay, select. Pending validation. Let's wait for the validation to complete. We are moving the entire virtual machine from one resource group to another resource group. Okay, let it check and confirm whether it can be moved. Okay, meanwhile, see, this is the problem. We have to have the same vault in that region. Okay, let's create one more vault in that region. Recovery services vault. In the destination side, I'll create a region. Create a vault. Okay, resource group Stan East US. This is East US vault 01. Okay, I'll create it in the destination side. Okay, just for safer side. Okay, if the movement is failing, at least we'll have one more alternate option. Okay, still validating. So this time it should work because we have the what do you call, the recovery services vault created in the destination side. So it should allow us to select it. But meanwhile, we'll try to remove the resources. In real time, you might not see this challenge because you might have a proper resource group for each locations, each application, so that it will be properly created. Here we messed up with having everything into same resource group. So it is validating. This is also kind of a migration or movement. Okay, just let that happen. Sorry about not giving any break in between. Things started flowing and then we were not able to take that. Okay, so here now if I go and enable the site recovery, I should start seeing that option. Now I should start seeing the resource group. Okay, so here next, so I can select the virtual machine. Okay, so now there is the source challenge. Okay, so either way, like it will lock us because one side unable to view select your VMs. Click here. So no. Okay, let's wait for the other thing to complete. Where did we create the VM? It's in stand resource group. Okay, it's in region is different. Okay, let's wait for okay, succeeded. Okay, so validation is succeeded. Let's try to move the resource. I understand, and then move. Let's see. Okay, so how about the other recovery services vault, whether the new RS vault is visible, sorry, new resource group is visible here. Go to the RS vault, go to this one, enable site recovery. In fact, we have option to deal with that, but I don't want to take that shortcut, but let me do it in the proper way. Yeah, now I am able, this one is Canada Central. I should be able to select stand Canada. Okay, fine. Now let's let the machine get migrated. It's getting moved. Okay, we are moving 5 resources. When I say 5 resources, it is only one virtual machine, but that virtual machine has got separate disk, separate network resource, IP address, all those things. We are moving that resource from East US to Canada Central resource group. We can also move across regions here, but it's just one time. Okay, you can also do that. Okay, even actual resource migration also you can do it using this Azure Resource Mover, but I'll show you how the actual replication and migration work. Okay, this will take some time. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's take a quick 10 minutes break and then we will come back. Okay, so stop the recording. Okay,
This
let's see.
conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let's refresh it. Yeah, so now I can see that the VM and all the resources are now in the stand Canada resource group. Okay, so this is like we did not plan for it, but then it ended up we created the system in a different location. Okay, now this is the beautiful tool, right? With this, you can move the resources between one region to another region, one resource to another resource, from one company's subscription to another company's subscription. It's a beautiful tool. Okay, so you can use that. Okay, so now we have made use of that, but again that's not how we do the actual replication and migration. I'll show you how to do that. So now I'm going to do the site recovery, or I want to do the continuous replication here. Enable the replication. Now I'll select the location Canada Central, select the Canada resource group. Now let's check whether it is able to load the machines. Perfect. Okay, now I'm able to see the virtual machine in the source region, Canada region. Okay, I can just select that. And then okay, but still like we might have to take some downtime and move the network, but that's fine for now. At least we have the resources available for migration. Okay, but in real time we have to have these things properly deployed in the right resource group, right network, and then you don't have a lot of challenges. Okay, now supports up to how much? 100 Mbps per VM. Okay, that's a good thing. So you can migrate it to West US or whatever location you want to. But yeah, I can just try to do it to West US. Okay, here it is asking what is the resource group you want to have. You can just have a new resource group created. I can just say stan West US resource group 01. And similarly, I can have some new virtual network created in the destination. Okay, this is fine. Okay, I can have this Azure site recovery at the end that denotes the destination side of it. Okay, it is asking what kind of storage I want to have. If you want to change it, you can change it. Okay, currently it is using premium, but if you want to have a standard SSD on the destination, you can also change that. Okay, it's it's possible. Okay, you can change the size, you can change the type, all those things. And if you want to change the availability option also, you can change it. Okay, if you want to kind of create multiple instance in an availability set, or if you want to change it, you can also change that. Okay, but I want to go with only one instance. Okay, so these kind of options are available as part of your migration and replication. When you move the resources, you don't have that. Okay, so now let me try and enable the replication. Click next. So it is asking me what kind of replication policy I want to do, whether I want to replicate okay, it gives me options like this. Okay, how much time I want to retain this particular replication, and whether I want to have the application consistent replication or non-application consistent replication. Only if you want to disable it, you have to check box this. I don't want to check box that. Okay, so I want to have application consistent snapshots being taken, and if you want to specifically store this for only particular number of days, you can have it. Okay, I can say that I want to store it for only 1 day. Okay, so this is my replication policy 01. Okay, it is asking me to create a replication group. Okay, so it is already having this option here, allow ASR to manage. If you want to manually create a separate replication group, you can do that. Okay, now what we are trying to do, we are migrating this machine from Canada Central to West US. Okay, let's enable this replication. So now when you replicate, you will have two VMs, one at the source and one at the destination. If you're moving the VM, you are just moving that system from one location to another location. You will not have two copies, but replication is different, moving is different. If you want to just move that, use the resource mover and complete your work. Okay, just like that, you can, whatever we saw that, right? You can move the resource using resource mover, and that can help you to move the resource from one location to another location. But what we are trying to do now, we want to have limited downtime for our system, and we want to enable the replication. We'll have two copies of the system, one at the source and the destination. If you want to continue with having two machines for a longer time, you can have that. But if you want to cut over during the weekend, you can also cut over and bring one of the server online and then bring down the other system. Okay, we'll see how that works here. Okay, now it is going and creating a backend service account in order for the migration to work. Okay, it's getting enabled. Okay, it started. Okay, now the replication is getting enabled. See, if you look at here, okay, so yeah, we have clicked that option very quickly. Yeah, now if you look at here, it is creating the first replication policy, whatever we have mentioned, right? So we want to have this replication content only for 1 day. So that those replication policy it will create the recovery time objective and the recovery point objective and all. And then it will start replicating the VM now. Okay, it is creating a destination site. Okay, that is in progress. We are looking at the complete details logs. So if you want to view this later, see if you go to your recovery services vault and then select the vault that you are trying to migrate, and go to the site recovery infrastructure, or you can also go and check the log here under the site recovery job. Okay, sorry, this one. Yeah, so here you can also check that. Okay, you can either check this here, or you can also go and understand how the architecture diagram looks like under your site recovery infrastructure. So if you go here, you can see what is happening now. Okay, currently we are doing Azure virtual machine, right? So here you can go and find that replication policy that we have created. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, so yeah, this is the one. And okay, we can also go and check how the network connections, you can get to understand the details in few minutes. Okay, it's going on. Okay, it's creating the site now. Okay, the same exact steps are applicable for your VMware or Hyper-V or other cloud like AWS or GCP. I'll show you the demo for that, AWS to Azure, tomorrow. Okay, let's see this first. Okay, while this is happening, I can also help you with some data here. Okay, it's successful and things have started. So how do we monitor the replication job? If you go to the replicated item here, you will be able to see that current status of the replication. Okay, replication health will come here. Okay, it will start in a minute now. Okay, so if you are already a migration engineer involved in migrating things, okay, as a migration engineer, you need to follow certain things. Okay, so migration best practices. Okay, so as a migration engineer, generally you need to go and identify what is the current capacity at the source, and also we need to understand the capacity of the system of the server, whether the OS disk and the other app data disk have enough free space. Okay, so we need to validate, because as part of the migration, if there is less space for on the OS drive or the app drive, then there are chances it might get failed because of the disk space issue. There should be some buffer, additional capacity or free space in order for the migration to handle or migration to work. And also, if there is no space, what we need to do? We need to go and clean up unwanted temp files, or clean up unwanted applications or data. You need to do an disable unwanted services or processes in your system. This will sometimes it will have impact on your migration, right? If there is a particular system that is used for very business critical, you need to go and get the maintenance window and then bring the app or database to a non, or like to a like we have to bring down the application or database. Okay, we have to do it in a proper maintenance window. We should not do it online. Okay, let this. Okay, it's going on. Let's not look at that. Okay, so now for example, we need to identify whether the systems are having proper licensing, proper subscription, and whether the software, I'm talking about two things, right? OS, database, software applications. So all the licensing and subscription has to be active, because if something goes wrong during the migration, we need to have proper subscription or proper support from the vendor. If you don't have active licensing or support from the vendor, then you will have a lot of challenges. And we need to plan for your migration to not plan in such a way it does not overlap with your backup or patching activity or any other parallel activity. It should not impact your other activities. Okay, so you need to understand when the system is getting backed up, when the system or if you want to move the backup schedule to a different time zone, if you want to do it, you can change it. Okay, only for the day of migration. And sometimes your antivirus or anti-malware might not allow the tool to get migrated. Okay, so only for the interim you can get some permission and disable with cloud security or security team permission. You can disable only during the migration alone. Okay, so you should not keep it disabled for long run, because sometimes the migration process will get impacted with your antivirus and anti-malware. So not only that, okay, you can also go and disable your Windows firewall, or your Linux IP tables, or your IC Linux can be kept to disabled only during the migration phase, and after migration you can re-enable that back. And you have to have a proper validation on the network settings at the source side and also on the destination side. So we need to find what kind of speed, what kind of duplex settings, and what kind of MTU that is allowed, maximum transmission unit that is allowed, and what kind of bandwidth we have got. So all those network configuration has to be validated end to end. And if you're migrating an application server, you need to find out the dependency mapping. You need to migrate the dependent systems in the same okay, dependent system has to be migrated in the same weekend or the same phase. Okay, you should not have two different systems sitting on two different locations and end up having a lot of issues. So we need to check, we need to take proper snapshot or proper backup before the migration. That is a small best practice, right? And if you want to disable unwanted CD, floppy, or whatever that are attached to your system, because in cloud we are not going to use that, right? If your on-premises has got these things, you can disable those unwanted drivers and unwanted firmwares, tools. You can remove it. For example, some hardware will have HP related drivers, tools, and all those things, right? VMware tools or hardware related tools can be removed because it is not required in the destination side. And yeah, so we need to have proper permission. That is definitely we need to have it. Okay, if you have administrative control, it is well and good that you can go and install any agent and you can have some proper migration done. So as part of the migration, you need to look at all these aspects. Okay, so whether you have the proper permission, proper licensing, are there any existing tickets or problem tickets going on the system? Are there any issues currently reported? Are there any other risks that are reported? So we need to understand all those things before we do the actual migration work. Okay, but I mean, this is a few areas. I'll list few more. Okay, since we have got some time for this to happen. Okay, yeah, it's healthy, it's protecting now. Okay, I don't want to look at the stare at the screen and just wait for things to complete. So now it is doing the replication. It is installing the mobility agent on the source machine, and once the agent is installed, it will do the actual replication and it will start the initial replication, and it will start migrating the system. Okay, since it is from one data center to one another data center from Canada to US, it will take some time, but it's not going to take too much of time like AWS to Azure. Okay, let's see. Let's give that uh, thing to happen on the back end. Okay, we don't have to look at that. So any other things, I know like many of you might have done the migration, right? Are there any other things that you generally look at when you do the migration? From your experience, if you want to share anything which I've missed. So we need to find out the domain membership, and then the DNS configuration on the source side. Okay, what kind of IP settings? So all these things has to be captured properly before the migration, and after the migration also we need to check that. And also we need to find out if there is any SSL encryption or any specific certificates that are tied to the system. Okay, we need to look at those things. And if the system has got BitLocker enabled, we need to disable that as part of the migration. Okay, these are all small things. If you have some snapshots that are there on the system, you need to clean up those, because with snapshot, machines will not get migrated properly. If it is a VMware VM or Hyper-V VM, you have to go and clean up the checkpoints or snapshot before you migrate the system. So what is this list? These are the list of action items or checklist that you can go and validate while you do the migration as a migration engineer. So these areas, if you document it properly before migration and after migration, then you will have a lot of success ratio with your migration. Okay, so migration checklist or migration best practices is what I can say. Okay, if you want to add later, you can add it. You guys have access to this Excel sheet, right? If you want to add anything now also, I'm good to add it. Anything else you generally check as part of your migration, which I've missed in this list? Am I audible?
Yeah, Stan. I
Okay,
think you have covered most of the things.
most of the part, right? Okay, fine, sure. I know for some of the people, migration is a completely new topic. I know people are okay. Initial replication is in progress. Okay, let's see. But for senior people, this is a must know thing. Okay, you have no exception. But for junior people, I know that they will not get involved in actual migration for first 3-4 years. So later only they will get involved. Okay, initial replication will take some time. Okay, let's refresh. So what this will do is, as part of the initial replication, you'll start seeing a new VM getting created in the destination location in the West US or whatever location we have selected. Will start when now it will not create. Okay, where we can go and check that. We can go to the storage account. So here there is a cache that has got created. Okay, under this, if you go to your container, you can see some data that is getting replicated. See, this is the Microsoft Azure site recovery. So where you are seeing some new folders that has got created and it is getting replicated. Okay, so you can start seeing some data created here. So you can see some page blob. What is the page blob? This is the virtual hard disk file. Okay, it is the VHD file. See, this is the sync session and you can see some data here. Yep. So the data is getting replicated using this folders. Okay, it will gradually start creating. Okay, here is where you can find the actual data getting copied over. See, you can see that there are some small 128 MB chunk files which are getting created in the destination location. So this is where the data is getting copied over now. Okay, now let's go to that vault and then see the replication status. See here in this status, there are some percentage that you see here, right? So it is 0% synchronized now, but the replication is healthy. It's happening. Okay, it is 0% synchronized, but there are some important things that you need to understand here. When it happens, when the migration is happening, there are some percentages that you can relate it with. So when there is a migration percentage, for example, if the migration is failing at the very beginning, okay, for example, from 0 to 5% at the beginning itself, okay, then what you need to check is migration percentage and possible reasons of failure. Okay, if your migration is getting failed at the beginning itself, then possibly it is because of permissions at the source or destination. Somewhere you are lacking some permission. At the initial time itself, it is failing, it is permission, or maybe some network settings or network checks are not getting passed, or maybe there is an agent related conflict, or there is a driver related conflict, some kind of initial conflicts it is saying. So what is the first initial 5%? It is going to create the target VM. Okay, what is the work that is going to get complete? So it is going to create the target VM, destination VM. So if it is failing at the initial stage itself, then we need to go and check the permission, network settings, agents, drivers, and all those things. Then if it has passed the 5%, from 5 to 6% or 5 to 10%, it will be mainly preparation for cloning. Okay, cloning prep. Okay, data is prepared for cloning or copying, data copying. So in this phase, it will if there is some issue, then maybe something some disk level issues, we can go and do some check disk to find out what is the disk level issues and so on. And after 10% to 95% or whatever, okay, it's mainly data copying. Okay, or cloning or copying or snapshot or whatever is what will happen. So if there is an issue at this time, then the issue will be at the disk level or network level. Something has got interrupted, some network issue or some disk issues has interrupted the data copying. So what will happen at 95 to 95%? 95 to 97 or 98%. This is post cloning activity. The data has got copied over and the destination customization is happening on the destination side. Finalizing is happening. Okay, so 97 to 99 percentage. So once it passes the 97 mark, we are almost done, because after 97 percentage, it is going to do some reconfiguration or customization on the destination requirement. Okay, if you have asked for changing the disk type from premium to standard or whatever changes we have asked, those reconfiguration and customization will happen. Even if this reconfiguration and this customization is failing, then we can bring the machine with the same settings on the source, same whatever we had on the source, we can bring the VM up online with the same settings. So if it passes the 97 mark, your migration is almost successful. What is the last 99 to 100% will do? Destination side tools or destination side agents and all those will get installed, and finally the machine will get powered on. Okay, from 99 to 100%. So this is how you can relate. If there is a error in these percentages, you can go and find out where exactly the problem might be, and you can relate this particular thing for every migration, not only for Azure. You can use this for any migration from any system to any system. Okay, this is the general baseline that you can have. Okay, going on. How much data? No, 0% still. Okay. Okay, let's go and check. So how do we find whether the migration is happening? Here on this machine network, if you see some data, I mean, if you see some network transaction, then that is a evidence that there is a lot of data copying over here. You can also go and check what kind of port is also being used in this migration, so that you can work with the firewall team for allowing those port or whatever which ports are being used for data copying and the connectivity and all those things. We can also have a closer look. See, these are the ports 498784 on this side, 80 and 443. Mainly 443 is used for the data transaction, data copying. Okay, so these are the port. Whatever you see established, those are the ports that are being used for the data copying here, or the replication. Mainly it uses 443. Okay, you can see that heavy data is getting transferred, data is getting sent and received. So which means like there is no issue. You also have 50 Gbps bandwidth on the source VM. So definitely things are moving. Okay, there is no issues. Okay, fine. Okay, let this happen. Okay, meanwhile, let's see if I can cover any other. Okay, I don't want to have too much, load you too much with information. Okay, so we can continue with the content. Okay, let this replication progress. So it is healthy. Okay, so if we start to see some percentage, okay, we'll stop it there, and then we can continue continue the content or session tomorrow. And we'll also have AWS to Azure migration. It is exactly the same procedure. Okay, and we'll see how it works. Now, in general, within Azure, if you want to do the migration, these are the steps involved. Okay, failover, test failover. Before doing the actual failover, we can also allow the team to go and do a test failover, and then ask the application team to log in and validate whether they see all the data, whether the applications are working fine. And once after they do the systems acceptance testing and the user acceptance testing, then we can do the actual failover. Okay, I'll show you how all these procedures or process are involved. If someone is complaining about the replication, that it is consuming too much of data and so on, you can go and disable the replication, or you have that option to um, do that here. And also, if you want to change the compute size, or if you want to change the network size or disk size, you also have the option to change that. Okay, so once the initial reservation is complete, these options will get enabled. I'll show you that. Okay, currently the synchronizing, see, this is where you can see how much data is pending. Okay, so the data is getting copied over. You can also click that and then see what is happening here. Okay, so things are happening. Okay, the disk is getting synchronized. Okay, which means like yeah, things are looking okay. There is no issues. Everything is reporting green. If something there is yellow or warning, then that is when we need to go and dive deep to understand what might be wrong. Okay, I'm just waiting for some percentage to come up. So once we see some percentage of, we are seeing data moving. Okay, so we are seeing that here it is evident that data is getting copied over. And similarly, we are seeing some data getting accumulated in your destination storage account. Here also, we are seeing some data getting accumulated. See, there is a lot of latest files. Not this one, this one. It has created too many folders. Just a second. Yeah, where exactly? Yeah, here it is. See, you can see that it is getting slowly copied over. And yeah, see, here it is. The actual page blob is here. Okay, it is copying in 128 MB chunks. Each block, it is creating it as, copying it as 128 MB. What is page blob? Page blob is the OS virtual hard disk. If you expand this, you will see the format here. So these are all virtual hard disk files. Page blob. Yeah. Okay, you can see how this contents are getting copied over. Okay, so definitely things are getting copied over. If you refresh here, a lot of data has already come. See 810, it has created a new file. You can keep on refreshing. So things are getting copied over in 128 MB chunks. Okay, every file is 128 MB. So it is keep on copying the data. So within 1 minute, it is copying almost 512 MB of data, which is good speed actually. And how did I calculate it, right? So I see like 4 files getting accumulated every minute. So that's the reason I told 512 MB. Okay, fine. Go to the replication. Sometimes Azure, it gives the overall synchronization status at the very end of the thing. Okay, after completing the complete copy. Ideally, it should show the synchronization percentage now only. Okay, how much data is pending? Okay, still 3.55. Okay, let me disconnect this machine. Okay, so I have some open application, right? Let me log off this VM to allow complete copy. Okay, so otherwise this pending data will always be there because of the open session. Any questions from anyone so far? See, you can see that the protection is happening, and this is where you will be able to find out which container it is copying the data. Okay, so if some of you had that question in mind, you can come and check where exactly the job ID is, where exactly the data is getting copied over. Okay, fine, things are going on. Any new files? Yeah, still going on, 812. See, this is where you can come and check whether your data is still getting copied over or not. If you're not seeing the percentage properly in your replication item, if you're not seeing the synchronization status properly, you can also check it under your storage account, and also you can check it on the source server, whether there is some traffic on the network level or data is getting traffic. If you can also use some tools like network monitor or whatever to go and check that. You have your inbuilt tool within the OS itself, right? Let me show you that. You can also install that Wireshark or some additional tools to find out if there is any disruption or any challenges. But you have the network monitor under your task manager itself. That also will show you clear information how much data is getting copied over. See here, if you go to the more details, go to the performance, look at the Ethernet action. See, you can see that huge amount of data is copied over. The data is getting sent this much. Okay, there is huge traffic going on. But it is happening from where? From Canada to US and between two different data centers. So if you want to practice, you can also practice within the US itself so that it will be much quicker. The lab will get completed quickly. At the end, you want to understand how the overall replication and migration works, right? So you can do it either ways. Wow. Waiting for first recovery checkpoint, which means the replication is already done. Okay, so it is waiting for the first recovery point to be available. So once the first recovery point is available, you will see the test failover option made available here. So it did not show percentage, but it completed actually. It completely completed the 100% synchronization. So you can just check that here. Okay, so synchronizing is almost complete. It should complete in some time. Okay, once the first recovery point is available, you can go and check that under the latest recovery point. Okay, so let's give it a time. It will open up these options here. So it has completed actually. Okay, if you look at here, all the data copy is done. No more data copy will happen. It's almost done now. 8:15, something is there. Okay, so unnecessarily we have opened it. Okay, we can close this one. Can just disconnect the session. Better to log it off. Okay, so final sync will happen now. See, it has cleaned up from the cache. Now what it will do is it will create a complete new VHD file out of that replication. Okay, let's give it some time. Let's refresh. Waiting for first recovery point. I think it will work in 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so okay, while this is happening, okay, I can also give some more few information here on the migration tools. See, we talked about different tools here, right? So we have got Carbonite, we have got Cloudamize, we have got Zerto and other things. So how does the customer decide which one to go for, right? Because you have these many different tool sets to use for, right? And they will check whether a particular tool supports multiple dimension. When I say multiple dimension, you have discover, you have assessment, you have migrate, you have optimization and all those things, right? We need to find out whether there is a single tool which can cover a lot of areas. For example, let's say Movier as an example. Okay, so Movier can do discovery, assessment, and it can also do the migration. But customer will ask whether it is a agent based or agentless. Okay, this supports both of them. So customer will not allow particular tools. For example, there are tools like device 42 which are completely agentless. Okay, and customer will be very uh, very clean. I mean, they will ask about, they will clearly ask whether this tool can be done without any agent installation or agentless. So that is another important thing that we need to find out, right? If there is a single tool that can be used for discovery and assessment and migration, then we can use that single tool for that particular customer. Number one. Number two, customer will ask, they will be specific about whether the tool is agent or agentless. We need to understand whether this one can do the migration with agent installation or agentless. These are all, mostly all these options are agent and agentless, both are supported case to case. Okay, but for specific customer environment, we need to identify. For example, if you are migrating from Hyper-V, we need to understand whether these tools can, if you have a lot of Hyper-V workload, we need to identify which tool can help you with covering many dimensions of the migration, plus which tool can be used for migrating without installing any specific agent. For example, if you take Azure Migrate, you just need to have your agent installed only on your Microsoft System Center Virtual Machine Manager. Even similarly on your, if you're talking about VMware, you just need to do it on your VMware vCenter only. You don't have to install agent on each and every VM. You just need to install the agent only on your centralized management console, which is your vCenter or your SCVM. All the other virtual machines, you can directly handle it from that. So for example, if you are having some specific workload, for example, Corentech, you can also use it for migrating Linux, Unix, Windows, and all those things. So customer will look for dimension, how many different OS flavor it support, how much, whether it is the cutover is minimal downtime or whether we need a lot of downtime for cutover, how much RPO, RTO it supports. So customer will start asking these questions, whether we need to provide any additional network firewall ports to be opened, So if the tool requires a lot of complication, then they will not approve it, right? Because the security team will say these ports are already used for something else, or the ports are vulnerable, and we cannot allow you to install the agent on our business application server. So all these are pretty important in deciding which tools is suitable for your environment. So first thing is the scope coverage. Okay, the OS hardware platform or the VM platform, which one it supports, then whether it is agent or agentless, and whether additional firewall ports needs to be opened, how much is the cutover or replication policy, what kind of RPO, RTO it supports, recovery time objective and recovery um, point objective and recovery time objective. Then what are the other ones? Whether it supports different workload like VMware, Hyper-V, physical, all those things. Okay, so based on these, customer can decide whether you can go with Microsoft Azure Migrate or third-party Movier or third-party Corentech. Movier is now a Microsoft product. It was a separate company before, but Microsoft has already purchased it. So let's go and refresh it. Do we have good news? Perfect. We have the good news. It's protected now. So when it says protected, you will have all these options open. So when it is protected, okay, you have the cutover option. See, it says we have not done any test failover as of yet. So if you want to do the failover, first we always have to do a test failover. What is the test failover purpose? Okay, the first thing, you need to create a test VM on the destination side. And why we are creating a test VM? This will allow us to do a system acceptance testing, user acceptance testing, and this is mainly for the testing activity. Okay, whether the application is working as before and there is no issues with the end users, all those things. Okay, so we can click on the test failover. You can directly go into the failover, but as a process procedure, it is always a good practice to do the test failover. Even if you go to the compute option, you can see a lot of new options are getting enabled. You can go and change the instance size. You can go and modify those things now because the complete protection is changed. You have the option to go and change the instance size. You can change the resource group now. You have the option to go and change the networking setting. You have the option to change the thing, what do you call? So you can see that only 2 MB is pending now. Okay, that is fine. Okay, there will be always some delta because the system is running, right? So there will be some catching that will be happening. So now I'll click on the test failover. Okay, what it is going to do now, it will go and create a new machine with the same name but hyphen test. Okay, we'll see that now the VM is in Canada Central, right? We'll see a new VM getting created in the destination. Okay, so it is asking where to create it. I'm creating West US. Whether it is going to create it in the Azure virtual network. If you have created a new virtual network, we can select that and then say okay. Okay, in general, as part of the testing failover, we'll have two different virtual network, test virtual network and then production virtual network. So because if you are creating a new VM on the existing production virtual network, it should not impact the other VMs that are already on the production virtual network. So it is always a good practice to have two different virtual network, one for testing and one for production. So when you do the test failover, you always have to select the test virtual network and you will get an IP address on the test VNet, and then you can test it. And then once after you test and confirm, you can go and do the actual failover and cut over to the production virtual network. This is another best practice. Okay, so we have clicked on the test failover. Now we can start seeing the hyphen test VM shortly. So we can check here also. Go and duplicate the console. Go to the storage account. So here you can start seeing that there is a new disk that is getting created. 755.814. Here it is. See, now you can see that there are some new page file that are getting created. So it has just started, right? 8:24. You can see that it is happening now. See, it is creating some new files, and you can start seeing the new VM getting created here. Okay, just give it 1 minute. The operation is triggered successfully. Refresh the blade. Okay, we can refresh the blade. They should have given an option here, but they have not given it. We can go and refresh the console. Yeah, completing test failover. Okay, which means you will start seeing the new machine here. Okay, click on that. So you can see that the new VM is getting prepared. Okay, if you see the VM is getting started, then ideally we should start seeing the VM there. Okay, these are the steps involved. It is creating a test VM. It has created it. Now it is preparing it, and it will start now. Perfect. We are seeing the test VM created where? In West US. It is getting created. Okay, so finally it is started. Okay, now you can go and refresh it. You have the new VM running in the West US. You have a machine running. The agent is getting installed. As I told you, the very last step, it will start installing the agent, the tools, and all those configuration settings. So after 1 or 2 minutes, you can start seeing the agent is ready. And if the machine is not having a public IP automatically, what you can do is you can go and add a public IP to that West US machine for testing purpose. You have the private IP, but private IP is not enough to test from our machine. Okay, how about the source machine? So did we check that? I mean, we have not checked that, right? We have not even added the security group also for port 80. We added a kind of web page, but we have not even added the security group. I mean, the 80 port, we have not allowed it. We should have allowed that so that the replication might copy over that particular settings. Okay, we should do this before, not now. Okay, we should have checked this before only. Okay, this is on the source machine. Okay, on the CN web, which is on the Canada Central. Okay, so it is working on Canada, but we need to check the same on the destination side on the West US. Okay, it has not assigned any public IP. What we can do is we can go and assign a public IP now in Canada, in West US, public IP address. Go and create a new public IP address in West US because I want to test it from my home itself. If I have another machine in that West US, I can log in there and check. So West US public IP 1. Okay, this is all fine. If you want to check, use some random name, like you can just give that. Okay, so Stan web server 1. If you want to use this name for validation, you can also do that. So resource group, I can select the destination Stan West US. Okay, location, you have to select the Stan, I mean West US location. This is where we will make the mistake. So we'll have to select this right location, create. Now, once after the public IP is created, I can go and assign to that VM. Meanwhile, I can also go and update the incoming traffic on 80 port. Oh, no security group attached. Okay, we can create one network security group also on the West US side. Stan West US security group 01, network security group 01. create. So we are going to do some testing. Okay, so for testing we definitely need to do some additional steps like this. We need to allow the connections and all those stuff. Let me add the, don't worry guys, tomorrow I'll complete the session little early. Okay, so we can compensate tomorrow. Okay, let's, okay, done. Go to the resource. I want to allow 80 port on the incoming. Okay, add. Now I want to attach this security group to that VM. How can we do that? If you go to that VM, go to the test VM. Under that, go to networking, and then attach the network security group. Go to this one. No associated network security group. Go this option. Select the network security group and save it. Okay, so you can go to the network interface directly, and also you can attach this. You can do it either ways. Now I want to attach the public IP also. So how do I do that? If you go to your IP configuration, if you go to your IP settings, here currently it has got only the private IP, right? So let me go and associate the public IP, select the public IP, save. Okay, you can attach a public IP, you can attach a network security group for the specific network interface. Okay, we are done with that. Sometimes your web server might need multiple IP address for your network card. Okay, that also can be achieved. Okay, how do we do that? I'll quickly show that also quickly, because we will come across the scenarios when you do a lot of migrations in your environment. Okay, so yeah, saved. So if you go one step back, you have the option to add additional interfaces or additional private IP. You can keep on adding more private IP here. Currently it has got 0.4. If you want to add additional private IP, you can click on this add option and you can keep on adding more IP configuration for your same network interface card, so that you can have multiple IP address on the same network card. You can also do that at the Azure level. So here now I've got the public IP assigned. Okay, so here I will start seeing the new public IP, copy that. Now I should start seeing that web page here. Perfect migration lab with Stan. So here, this is the machine which is running on West US, and this is the different IP. Okay, whatever we saw earlier is a different one. Okay, this is on the Canada Central. IP address is completely different. This is what? 20.220. Whatever we have seen is 20.66. So both of them should work. We have two machines running in two different data centers, two different global region, having the same content. Now, once after we complete the testing, what we can do, we can go and just say, okay, we are testing is done. If you want to go one step back, go to that vault. Now we can say we are done with the testing, and we are good with replication. So how do I complete that? So I can just go and say, clean up the test failover. You have this option here. Okay, we can just mention testing is done, both user and system integration testing is complete. Okay, testing is complete. What it will do, it will delete the test failover machine. Okay, now it will can go and delete the test failover machine here. Automatically it will delete this test VM. This test VM will be deleted now. Where exactly the test VM is currently there, you can go and check the disk here. See, you can see this is the disk. Where exactly this disk is stored? This disk is in storage account. Which one? CN Web OS disk A40. This one. See, this is part of the ASR replica. This one ASR test. Okay, we can see the name difference. Okay, this is attached to the test VM. So this thing is going to get deleted now. So if this is not getting deleted, you have to go and clean it up. Okay, it should get automatically deleted. In some time, you will see that going off. Yeah, see, now it is detached from this machine. So that means this VM is already down. Console is not getting updated quickly. Gone. Okay, it's cleaned up. Yeah, this is also cleaned up. Perfect. So VM gone, disk gone. Now it's completely cleaned up. So we have the cleanup test over complete. So go one step back, refresh, and now we should start seeing the protected status again. This time, I'm not going to do the test failover. I'm going to do the actual failover. So if you click on the actual failover, what it will do? It will shut down the source machine. If you don't want to do that, okay, you can just uncheck this option so that the Canada Central VM will be still up and running. You can also shut down the VM. Okay, I can just shut down that. Okay, let's see that. Okay, now it is failing over from Canada to West US. So as part of this, I've also asked the VM on the Canada to be powered off. You have to do it during the weekend only, okay, or during the maintenance window only. You will start seeing a new VM here, and the old VM on the Canada will be getting powered off. Okay, any questions from anyone? I know like it's a lot of theory plus some practical. Tomorrow we are going to see interesting two practical session, one on AWS to Azure, and we also see migration of databases to Azure database. We'll see two labs tomorrow. Okay, it'll take some time, at least 5 minutes. We failover. Yeah, failover was initiated. You can see the status here. Okay, synchronizing is not needed because there is no changes. Start failover is happening. If it saw some, see, stopped and deallocated, perfect. So if it has seen some changes, okay, it will synchronize the latest changes also here. Okay, it has not seen any changes. It has validated and skipped that particular step. Now it will stop the replica VM on the destination. See, this is already stopped in Canada. Now you will start a new VM in US West. Okay, we need some patience. See, part of migration, if you are working in the weekend, you might have to wait the entire day also. Sometimes if the VM is huge, the migration will go for the entire weekend also sometimes. If the VM is database VM or if it has got some terabytes of content, then you need a lot of patience there. At least here, we are just migrating 100 GB content. So in real time, you will have 1 TB, 2 TB. So you have to think that you need that much amount of time and patience to watch the things. You can also cancel the replication at any time. Okay, you have the option completing failover. Perfect. Final steps. You have the cancel option here. Okay, don't click on that. So you can also start seeing new disk getting created here. Okay, if I refresh, see, perfect. I've got one more disk created now. Now that disk will be owned by the West US VM here automatically. See, the VM, the disk has got created where? In the West US. How did that get created? From this replica disk, it has copied the new disk here. Okay, this is the new VM disk for WestUS. So the name of the server will be exactly the same as that of the source. The same name you will have the VM in WestUS. Done and dusted. Okay, so we are good. So now, if you want to test that, we can go and update the networking settings. Same exact option, whatever we did during the testing. We can go and do the same thing. Okay, go to the network interface, go and attach the security group. If it is not already there, save it, save the IP configuration. Okay, give it a second to save that settings, whatever we changed. Okay, assign the public IP, go to the interface, associate, select that public IP, save it, done. Now we have the actual machine in West US up and ready, successful, all done. Refresh. Failover is successful. Failover is completed. Now you have few more options to play around, whether you want to commit it, whether the application team or the business end users are saying, no, I'm not seeing some data. You can go and change the recovery point. What is the recovery point? So you can change it to latest checkpoint or a little more old checkpoint. Sometimes they will say, no, this is not what we were looking for. We want the yesterday's afternoon data or yesterday night data. You can also change the recovery point. And if they say no, even after all those things, we did not get all those things, you can go and say reprotect. Reprotect will again do the final sync again. And once after you commit it, you cannot do anything. Commit is the final step. If you say commit, these options will get grayed out. Okay, and if you want to disable the replication, you can click on disable the replication. And if you want to change the recovery point based on the user's feedback, you can change it. And if they say they want to have some more data synchronized, you can do that before you commit it. If you say commit, then no more options are available. Click on commit. Are you sure you want to commit? Once you commit, you cannot change the recovery point. You cannot protect anything more now. Okay, so fine, I want to commit it, close it. Okay, let's go and check the system now. Go and check whether I have the public IP. Go and copy it, close the old console. Done. Deal. Okay, fine. So this is how we can do the end-to-end migration. You can practice it within Azure, but I'll show you how to do it from AWS to Azure. And also we have the demo for database migration also lined up for tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining today. And I'll be here for 2 more minutes. If you have some questions, feel free to ask, or else have some rest and come back for tomorrow's session.